In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a DIY box filter or bottle filter. And this is pretty much a V2 of the one I made back then. Back then, I made a video on a DIY water polisher with somewhat of a similar technique as this. So I used the same bottle and pretty much just instead of doing filter media, I filled this up with filter floss. That video on my channel got about 6,000 views, and I think some of the people that watched it pretty much watched it for the wrong reasons. So what I made back then was a DIY water polisher, because at the time of that video my aquarium in the garage didn't have any kind of mechanical filtration. The water column got dirty real fast, so I needed some sort of water polisher, and that's the reason why I made that bottle filter. So for today's video, we're going to be revisiting that topic, but instead of a water polisher, we're going to be making a water filter or a biological filter. Biological DIY filter with the same technique. A good reason why you want to know how to make one of these is because you might run into certain things that you might need one of these, or you might need to make one on the fly. So one of these things might be a power outage. So when you experience power outage, pretty much everything is going to be off. Your heater is going to be off, your canister is going to be off, your water pump is going to be off. But there's a very, very popular item to have at all times when it comes to power outages, and that's one of these. This is a Marina battery powered air pump, and I have one for every single tank. And what happens is when you have a power outage, you just flip this switch. It pumps air into your aquariums, providing oxygen for your fish. And what I like to do is I attach these to my sponge filters. I usually have sponge filters in all my aquariums, except for my giant Grommies aquarium. But as you can see in the corner, there's a air-powered K1 moving bed bottle filter or whatever. So I'll probably plug it into that kind of stuff. And when it comes to a power outage, I always use the airline and plug it into any air-powered filter. So this is the reason why you would probably want one of these in your aquarium cabinet or just kind of hanging out somewhere, because if you're running a hang-on back filter and you have a power outage, you can pretty much use all that media that's in there, transfer it into a bottle filter like this, plug it into a battery powered air pump like this, and provide your fish filtration and oxygen while you're having a power outage. So again, like the old video, I'm using a Planters peanut jar. This is one of my favorite things to use because the wrapper on the bottle doesn't have any kind of adhesive. It's just kind of like heat shrinked on. So all you do is cut it and pull it off, and there's no adhesive, no extra cleaning you have to do. So all you need is one of these, PVC pipe, a bunch of airline, pliers, a drill that I already used, an air pump, and filter media. Did I forget filter media? The first thing you're gonna do is get your bottle, peel off any labels, wash off any stickers or adhesive, whatever. Make sure it's super clean before you use this in your aquarium. Next, what you're gonna wanna do is get your lid and drill all kinds of holes up top. Drill a hole for your riser tube, and then drill a bunch of holes for your intake. Another reason why I like using the Planters peanut jars or the peanut containers is because their lids are very wide, so you can drill a lot of holes and still fit a rising tube in the middle. Next, what you're going to want is a PVC pipe. The reason why I like using PVC is because I usually have a lot of scraps around the house from building filters and sumps and whatnot, so this is just an extra piece from my sump project outside, and this actually works perfectly fine with this project. So the big hole that you drill in the middle is for this PVC pipe, pretty much like that. And the next step of PVC pipe is, you see how there's no holes here? What you're going to want to do is drill holes like this. And the reason why you want to drill holes is because if you didn't have any holes here and you put it to the bottom of your container, you won't have as much flow as you want, because the bottom end of that PVC pipe is pretty much covered by the container itself. Which is the reason why you want to drill holes like this towards the bottom of your PVC. And the reason why I'm not drilling holes throughout this whole thing like sponge filters do is because I'm not having a sponge on this, and I'm putting it into a container that I want to run water through all the filter media. So if I were to drill more holes than this, and especially ones that are higher, water would just kind of come through the intake, hit the highest hole, and then shoot back out. all this extra space is not going to be used. But the reason why I only drill holes at the bottom is because I want water to flow from the top, pass through all the media, and then shoot back out. So it just goes like this. Now that you got that out of the way, next what you're going to want to do is get one of these T-taps. Put your airline through your PVC, and on the other end is going to be your T-tap and the side with all the holes. What you want to do is cut a portion of your T-tap so you can fit it inside the PVC itself. Along with that, what you're going to want to do also is cut the other end. So as you can see, it's like that. So the end that's in the air tube is pretty long, and then the two ends are cut short, and I'll show you why. But don't cut it too short. Now what you're going to do is put the T-tap through one of those holes that you drilled. So now it's like this. See what I did there? So just to give you an example of what I'm doing with the T-tap, this end is where the air comes in from. This one is used to hold the airline in place, and the other one is where the air is going to come out of. The reason why I do it like this is because I don't want this airline to be floating out of this air lift tube, and this will pretty much keep it secure in the pipe. Does that make sense? So the next step is plugging up this anchor portion of the T-tap. If you don't plug this up, air is going to come out of it and this thing is not going to work. So what you can use is a plastic screw of some sort, or what I like to do is just get a lighter and melt it so there's no path where the air can come out of. So once that's done and everything's secured, you can start putting together your filter. The next step is to get your filter media. So go ahead and grab that now. So I have my media here, and this was the media that I was using in the hang-on back for my 40. And this is all of it. So this is basically all the filter media that you can have in a hang-on back. And this is kind of the reason why I use sumps, because you can fit way more, but to each their own. Open up your lid. Put the airlift tube inside and start putting filter media in. Alright, so now that we're done, we have all the media that's inside the bottle. The next step is kind of optional, but before I start that, I'm going to go ahead and cut off this tube. So right now what we're doing is we're looping the top cap over and lining up the pipe so we can close the bottle. And that's that. And with all this media in there, you don't have to worry about this pipe coming out. It's pretty sturdy. And if you remember, I don't have anything holding the pipe in there except for this media. But once you put water in here, this might not be as snug, so that's something you have to be careful about. So for the ones that are wondering how it is cleaning out this bottle and doing maintenance on this bottle, I'll show you how it is. What you're going to want to do is fill this up with tank water, not with tap water like I just did. I only filled it up with tap water because there's no beneficial bacteria in here, and I'm just rinsing off the debris. Now, this is just as easy as doing this. That's it. Like that. And this will rinse out all the detritus that's built up inside this bottle. But if you don't want to do that, then you can always do this as well. So this next step is optional depending on you. So what you can also do is unscrew the cap. And with all this extra space here, you can go ahead and stuff filter floss in there. Like so. Don't stuff it too much because you won't have any water flow that goes through it. So that's the next thing that you can do. You can put filter floss at the rim of this bottle because this is where the water is going to be entering from. So if you want to pre-filter before it hits all your media, this is an option that you can do. I wouldn't put too much filter floss because this would kind of prevent as much water to flow through as possible, but just enough to capture debris and stuff like that. So this is kind of like a mini water polisher, but at the same time it has a whole lot of media. As you can see, it pretty much took all of the media that was in my hang-on back except for about this much. So it's not bad. All that's left to do is to close the cap. And put it in your aquarium. Even though I made this for another tank, I'm gonna use this aquarium to show you how this works because on this tank I have a gang valve, so I have a bunch of air that I can drive through this and show you guys the process of how this works. So next what you're gonna wanna do is plug the air line into an air pump. But for this example, I have a gang valve on this aquarium, so I just kind of plug it in like so and turn on the air. So in the last build, I never went over how this exactly works. So for this one, I'll go in a little bit more into detail. So how this works is at the top of the container, you'll see little holes that's drilled in all across the top of it. These are the intake holes. This is where the water flows in from. And how water flows into the top is through the air lift tube that we built with the PVC pipe. So as air bubbles are being pushed through the air lift tube, behind those bubbles is causing suction, which pulls water from the aquarium into this little contraption. And therefore, the water comes in through the little holes on the top of the container. Being that we didn't drill holes all throughout the pipe, the water is then forced through the media. So as a result of the suction, the water has to travel through all of the media in order to escape. So the water travels from the top of the container all the way to the bottom and then exit the container through the air lift tube, therefore creating a cycle. And again, the water pressure and the water flow depends on how long the air lift tube is and how narrow it is. The more narrow and long the air lift tube is, the more water is going to be pushed through this system. Another factor when it comes to making these DIY aquarium filters is you want the top of your air lift tube as far away as your intake as possible. Because if it's too close to your intake, you're not really going to be cycling as much water in the aquarium. You're pretty much only going to be intaking all the water that's already been filtered. So when it comes to maintenance on this container, it depends on how you set it up. So if you set it up with the filter floss, all you're going to do is unscrew the cap and replace the filter floss and then put the cap back on. The thing I don't like about hang-on backs and canisters is you don't know how much detritus actually builds up in there, and cleaning them out is pretty much a pain depending on your tolerance for aquarium maintenance. But for this type of filter, all you do is take it out of your aquarium, give it a couple shakes in a bucket full of old aquarium water and put it back into your tank. That way you're pretty much rinsing off all of the detritus and you don't have to worry about it building up and causing all kinds of nitrates and whatnot. Or if you're going to go with the filter floss technique, all you do is unscrew the cap and replace the filter floss, and that's it. So what's great about these types of filters is depending on the size of the container that you use, you can hold as much filter media as you want. You can be very customizable with it. You can add layers, you can add carbon if you want, you can add different types of media, different types of mechanical media, and you can even layer these out to your liking. Another thing I like about these is that if you use a clear container, you can see how dirty these things are. So that's a better way for you to judge when to actually clean the container. And I guess one last thing I like about these types of filters is, as you can see, the intakes are on the top of the bottle. If you have a lot of bottom feeders that you feed things like bloodworms and sinking pellets, this filter will not suck that up because the intake holes are not at the bottom. It can be a good or bad thing depending on how you see it. If you have a lot of detritus that builds up at the bottom of your aquarium, then this filter won't pick it up. It'll pretty much just provide you biological filtration. The only bad part about this filter is the looks of it. It looks kind of ugly. I think this is the reason why a lot of people didn't like it. Depending on how you make it and depending on the materials you choose to use, you can make this filter look really, really nice, but it's all up to the creativity of you. But for me, I don't really care that this filter is ugly. I just need it to do its job and filter my aquarium. And pretty much that's all I really worry about. So again, this filter is not meant for this aquarium. This aquarium has enough filtration as it is. This filter was actually made for my new project with my 2 little monsters that I barely picked up. And you can kind of see the tank in this frame right here. But revealing these fish is going to be the next video. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. And peace, guys.